everybody. Welcome back to Raising Empowered Kids Super Light series where we highlight all of the amazing behind the scenes moms and dads who are helping their children be great. Tammy, how are you feeling today?
Oh, I'm over the moon excited today, Sylvia, because one of the guests that we have here in the waiting room is very near, very dear to me for many reasons. But I don't want to say too much. I don't want to give it away, but I'm super excited to bring her on board and introduce her. I don't think it gets bigger than this, right? As a power parent and the work that she's doing to champion a youth advocate that is no longer a youth anymore. We're going to have to find out how old her daughter is and what that journey looked and sounded like.
All right. And the good news too, this is going to tie right into our film festival theme at Niagara Falls, Ontario, Canada on June 1st. So stay tuned or click the link to learn more how you can be part of this really unique and inaugural event for Raising Empowered Kids. And let's get right into our interview today.
All right.
Hello, Stephanie.
Hello.
Hey,
Welcome.
Stephanie.
Hi.
Drum roll, right? This is so
Yeah.
big. We're so excited to have you, Stephanie. And, Sylvia and I were both saying you look absolutely beautiful. And we're a big fan of the work that you are doing and all the amazing stuff behind the scenes that it takes to raise empowered kids like your daughter, Autumn. So why don't you give us a little bit of an introduction to who you are and who your daughter is, because it's a big deal. And we're excited to have you today.
All right. Thank you. My name is Stephanie Peltier. I originate from Manitoulin Island. I am Odawa Anishinaabe, and I am a single parent that raised three daughters on my own. I'm also an intergenerational survivor of Indian residential school. My parents were survivors, and I'm also an Indian day school survivor. And for me, I have to mention that because it really impacted all of our people, but it also impacted me and my family. And being a survivor of something like that, and to be a parent that has a child doing this kind of work is kind of, it's something, because I could have went totally the other way, but I stayed on the path.
Wow. And isn't that is exactly the biggest truth is we each have a choice, right? We could either take our pain and our hurt and we can propel that and go down that pathway, or we could take our pain and turn it into our purpose and our passion. And that's what I love that you've been able to do with Autumn is, channel that into the best of ways and help create the awareness and the consciousness for the planet, for your people, for the water, for all the amazing voices that you guys stand for and represent.
Yes, thank you.
So where would you like us to start with this journey, Stephanie? Because we're all about raising empowered kids. And that is
Okay.
one thing that you have done successfully and very well. And it's not an easy journey. So could you tell us a little bit about, your journey and how this all began?
Well, it was a decision that I made to live a healthy life, because growing up the way I did, there was good, there was lots of bad, but, it kind of, makes you really look at yourself. And I actually didn't even want to have kids, when I was younger, because I thought I wouldn't be able to be a good parent because I didn't have the greatest, role models at the time. And certainly things changed over time as they got older and their healing began, so, I was really scared. And then here I am, I had three daughters, and it was a really scary time, like, to take that step to say, I don't want to live in an unhealthy environment. I don't want to raise my children the way I was raised, and the different experiences that I had that I'm still healing from today. And I just wanted to try to give them a better life. And I had no idea where things would lead. And I can honestly say that with the three daughters, the last one's graduating grade 12 in a few weeks. And one, two, three, they're all out of the nest. And I honestly been going through empty nest syndrome, and a lot of things have happened. So what started it off is, I, as a single mom, I really, what saved me was my ceremonial ways and our teachings and everything that, our people speak of. And if I didn't have belief and faith in a higher power and what we call creator Grishem Nado, I honestly feel I would not be here, because, if I have went down a path and I turned my life around, and then after that, that's when I decided
Hmm.
I don't know how I'm going to do this, but when I remember deciding to become a parent, I actually asked elders, people that were married for a long, long time, how did you do it? And, how did you raise your kids? And they gave me specific teachings that, are culturally known to my people, and talking about roles and responsibilities, and, living your life through the medicine wheel, that balanced lifestyle, and practicing the seven grandfather teachings. And to me, I said, what kind of grandparent do I want to be? What are the kids, what do I want my kids to know? And I said, well, I'm going to have to learn all this myself. So I went out on as a young person to learn about my culture and spirituality, and I found myself. And then, that's what started my journey. And when autumn came around, it wasn't the best of situations. And but I made the choice very, like, right in when I found out. And I decided that, being with the dad wasn't a healthy thing for me to do. So, and it was actually a sad time, because I didn't even tell anybody I was having a baby, because I carried shame, and I felt embarrassed, because, oh no, I'm going to be a single parent again, and I didn't want to let my parents down at the same time. So when my dad finally reached out to me in Thunder Bay, I haven't heard from you in a while, what's going on? Then I knew he heard a rumor. So sure enough, I heard a rumor. And I said, yeah, I said, Dad, I'm having a baby. And he did say, why didn't you tell me? And I said, because I was embarrassed and ashamed, and I didn't want to let you down, that I'm doing this again. And then it was really interesting, because it was him that said, I don't want you to have a hard time. So when the baby's born, we'll raise it, and she'll always know you're her mom. And he did come to Thunder Bay, and he stayed. Him and my stepmom stayed with me for a while, and I think it was about 5 or 6 days. And I remember them packing up the little clothes, and I was standing there looking at them, and I was holding this baby. And the first thing that came to my mind was, um, my responsibility is to be her parent, and you're the grandparent. Your role is to be a grandparent. So that's what, when they left, I said to myself, don't mess this up, because I had an opportunity. And like, my was a school teacher most of his life, and he's a culture and language person, and I was thinking she would be so fluent, so cultural. But I said, I could do those things for her too. And so um part of that journey was, I knew that there was something different about this baby and this pregnancy, because I shared before with you that when I was pregnant with her and I was at ceremony, a big storm was coming, and I didn't want me and my little Naomi, my older daughter, she was 7 at the time, to be caught in the rain. It's muddy. Let's go back to the hotel. When we got to the hotel, the storm hit, and it hit where I parked. It hit a tree a few feet from me, and I was outside trying to go around the car to get my other daughter. And when the lightning hit, it threw me far. And then I laid there and I was thinking, oh no. And I waited to see if I had cramping. And I got up really slow, and my daughter went to open the door. She was like really scared. And I came in, I closed the door, and I sat down, and I felt that all over my body. It was this tingling sensation. And I said, and I kind of got scared. And then I thought, I wonder, if I should go to the hospital. So we waited a bit. I caught my breath, had some water, and I was fine and I fell asleep. And the next day I went to sunrise ceremonies, and my Auntie Josephine was there, and I told her what happened, and she rubbed my belly and she said, the Thunderbirds blessed this baby and you. And I was just like, whoa. And just to think of that, right then and there, it was almost like I felt different. And when Autumn was born, when she came out, I was waiting for the baby to cry, right? They give me this baby and she had this real serious look on her. And I was just like, whoa, she looks, I looked at her and I said, who are you? And I wondered what she was gonna be. And I thought, what a perfect little baby. She was like so lots of hair and but that serious look there. I said, most babies cry. I'm like, how come she's not crying? She cried after, but at at that moment I said, okay, there's something here. And so as years go by, I think she was just turning 8. We were in Serpent River First Nation. We attended a water ceremony. My Auntie Josephine was there, and then that's where I could see it in her eye. It was almost that same serious look. And then, all the little kids were all running around and playing. She wasn't. She was standing there and she was watching things. And then I asked her later what happened. I said, oh, what's going on? And she's like, Mom, why can't we wash our hands with the water? I said, oh, the signs. And they were all over. Don't consume the water. Don't wash your hands with the water. I told her it's contaminated. And she looked around and she's like, so these little kids don't even know what it's like to have running water? I said, no, everything's bottled and boiled in there. And that was it. She kept asking me questions. And then finally she was like, is it all over? How come people can't drink the water? And then I said, well, it's contaminated here. There used to be a uranium mine north of here, and all the tailings were in the water for like 25 years. And she was just like, then she started Googling. And then she started, Mom, there's more First Nations. And then she's like, Mom, are all First Nations can't drink the water? I said, no, no, no. I said, we can drink our water here where we come from. And then that was it. She goes, I want to write a letter. And I said, yeah, you want to write a letter? So all I did was listen to her. And then I was thinking, if I didn't listen to her and I didn't care, we probably wouldn't be where we were at. But I was always told, really listen to the kids, what they're saying, and watch them and observe how they are and how they're feeling. So I always paid attention. And when she started asking questions, I just supported her and helped her along. And then she, got an opportunity to speak at the Anishinaabe Winteg language conference in Sault Ste. Marie. And she wrote a speech about the water and the language, and she won. And so after that, people were like, we want to talk to her. And then she got chosen to represent Indigenous youth, her and another young girl, Francesca Pheasant. And it was Bernadette Shawanda and her husband who had invited her because their kids were boys and they were already aged out. So she says, I need two younger people. So I want to take Autumn. I said, okay. And then Autumn never been on a plane. Autumn's never been anywhere without Mom overseas, anywhere. So after the fact, I was like, and I couldn't go. It was them chaperoning her. So this was a big thing. I think she was 10 years old. And she went to Södertälje, Sweden, to the Children's Climate Conference, and she spoke there. And upon returning, the Assembly of First Nations chiefs heard about these girls going there to talk and represent Indigenous children. So they wanted to hear what they had to say. And when Autumn went up, she spoke last. And she went and said her speech about the water, and then she sang the water song, and she was crying, but she didn't stop. Like, I just looked and she kept singing and she was crying, and everybody was like, oh my goodness. And she just kept right through it. And all the chiefs came and they put their hands on her, and she was up there, and you could see the video on YouTube. And that was the starting point of and when she was done, we went to the side. They all lined up to shake her hand, and they were gifting her. And then that's when they started inviting her to come and speak for the water. Lots of challenges there, being a
Yeah.
mom.
Your story is so powerful, Stephanie. And the first thing that I just want to acknowledge you on is when you said you made a decision. And that's where it all starts. You wanted to live a better life and create a healthier life for yourself and your children. And the second thing you said is that you drew from wisdom, and not just your head, but a higher source, right? And so I love that when you're going through the most difficult and challenging times, to be able to access something bigger than ourselves and tap into that you didn't think you'd be able to go through everything that you went through without that higher power. I truly believe that is what gets us through the most difficult and challenging times. And so I love that you took the responsibility of your child, and you made a commitment to yourself and to your 3 kids to be able to, impart on the wisdom and the teachings of everything that your people and your relatives, your father has guided you to do. And so I just love that piece, because without that, and then like you said, listening to the children, and the fact that you were brave enough and courageous enough to let her go overseas on her own at 10 years old is not easy. And the strength that must have taken as a mom, and I'm sure Sylvia could, identify with that. But just those are the things, just listening to your story and how you were struck with that lightning, right? And you knew when you looked at that soul in front of you when she was a baby, and you knew that she had something to tell you. And then
Yeah.
you were just the listener learner and guiding her into this pathway, because she chose you, obviously, because you were the absolute perfect mom for her pathway to help awaken people on so many causes that her little voice, and that's it. Children,
Yeah.
are the voice, because they're all about altruism, right? And they don't have an alternative message or meaning. They're not about power. They're in their spirit and their soul. And this reminds me of Severin Suzuki. Like she said, when she went and did the United Nations speech, it was her most powerful and impactful because she's a child. And when people
Mhm.
see and hear children move at that level, we are moved very deeply by them. So I
Mhm.
just want to say and honor you for everything that you've done. And those would not have been easy, right, Sylvia? You could testify to that, because Sylvia
Well,
has 3 children herself.
I'm like Tammy, you're saying everything that I'm thinking here. Because Stephanie, you were such a good storyteller. Can I just say, you kept me kind of like wanting to like, okay, what happens next? What happens next? Because there's just so many things that you know. The type of surrounding you were describing, where Autumn was looking at the water, and it sounds like with the one key thing that I felt throughout your whole story is you were really letting things go with the flow, and that you weren't trying to force it to go a different way. You weren't letting the head just get to it. You really listened to your heart, to your intuition. And I just love how the questions just came, and I can totally relate to that, where you don't really have to you let them do the most of the decisions, and they get better at making decisions.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're just her questions,
And
and just allowing her those, and guiding her to those, picking up those opportunities with reading her speech. I mean, I'm sure that you summarizing it makes it sound so easy, but that was definitely not an easy task to come up with such a brilliant presentation for herself.
Yes, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
Stephanie, I just want to give you an opportunity to celebrate Autumn and everything that she's done, because there's maybe people listening to this story that don't know who Autumn necessarily is, or all the accomplishments. Like, I've been trying to follow her path and see everything she's done, but she's accomplished so many things. let's just as a celebrating you as a mom who gets to celebrate your daughter and all the amazing things that she's done. Maybe if you could give us her 10 maybe best highlights, the biggest things that have made the biggest impact, and what those accomplishments would be.
So the number one thing for me was when she graduated from high school 2 years ago. And what happened there was I invited my dad, well, not to high school. What happened was she was telling me the dates, and then we got word from Royal Roads University that they wanted to honor her with an honorary doctorate of law. And I was like, whoa. So we went to Victoria, BC, all of us, and I took my dad with me. And it was really amazing because they allowed my dad to go up on the stage to talk while she was getting awarded. And for me, when he was standing up there talking, I was just like, I wonder what he feels like, because he offered me an opportunity to raise her, and would we be here, or what would have been like for her, and I said when he left, I better not, well, I actually said, don't F this up, because I had an opportunity. And one of the things I like, because my mom is gone now, and she always said to me, and that's tough love. That's one thing my mom taught me, was tough love. And it's so hard to do when you have a big heart. It's something I've been learning to do. And she's the one who said, you didn't ask me permission to make this baby. She said, this is your responsibility. And if you ever tell me you're tired, you need a break, or you want to go out with your friends, she says, don't call me. And that was a big eye opener. And she says, I'll help you if you stay in school and you work. No problem. I'll be there. And I said, okay. Well, I guess I got to keep staying in school if I want someone to help me a little bit here, and I didn't always live around her, but she always would emotionally support me. And my mother didn't have a lot of money, but she would send like even $20 or $40. And just that, I never wanted her to give me that because she needed it more than me, but to her, she felt like I needed it, so it would always pay something. It would always go to the kids. And that's what I miss about her. But she taught me how to be strong and independent and motivated. And that's why I get emotional thinking about it. But it was that moment when uh, Autumn got her honorary doctorate. That was the number one, because like 2 weeks later, she graduated grade 12. And so, she could be Dr. Autumn Peltier if she wanted to use it, and that was huge. And then to see my dad up there. And the other one was the United Nations. When we went down for a World Water Day, that was funny because me, at the time, we didn't have a manager. It was me, and it was very chaotic because the emails were coming in left and right. That day, I remember going through my email and I was deleting things, delete, and the junk mail. I was going through the junk mail, and usually I'll go through it and then I'll delete it. But then I seen this one, it said something about the United Nations, and I'm like, here I am in my home community on the First Nation, and I'm sitting there, and then I get this email. I almost deleted it, and I said, I better check it. So I clicked it, and it said, from the President of the United Nations, we're requesting your presence to do keynote address World Water Day at the United Nations. And I was just like, whoa. I'm like, I almost deleted that. So I sent it off to our chief at the time, and my community made it happen, and Anishinaabe Nation. And then we went out to the United Nations, and she went to speak at that time. She was 13. And man, oh man, she made me so proud because, you know, at the end, what she says at the end of that closing speech, she said, how did it go? Now it's the time for you to warrior up. And I was just like, whoa, she just told everybody to warrior up.
She's
And
a warrior,
that,
isn't she? Like,
yeah,
she really is a warrior. If you could paint a picture of her in her attire and her clothing, and just, her spirit is so big for such a
yeah,
little person, right? Little
yeah,
child, and
yeah.
her spirit was so big.
And it's cute that you say it like that because my mom had a nickname for her, and she used to call her in the language Zigime, which means a little mosquito. Because she's very petite, and so she always used to dance around and jump around, tumble because she used to do gymnastics, and my mom would always look at her and she goes, there she goes again, that little Zigime, that little mosquito. And she
Uh,
just like going around, and I said, yeah, that's what she does. But
So, Stephanie, I want you to just think about all the different ways. If you could just even just shine a little light in all the different ways Autumn's voice and has impacted from, she's in the language and literacy books in Ontario. You see her, like, what are some of the things she got to meet Jane Goodall, right? Like, what are some things that are super cool of empowering her, that these experiences and her being a youth activist has exposed her to, or then
well,
shared other, like, allowed others to see and be influenced by her.
she did get invited also to the World Economic Forum where she sat on a panel with Greta. So we got to meet Greta and other Indigenous youth around the world that are doing activism. So we went to Davos, and that was quite the experience going there. It
Circle
was
of influence, right? Like, talk about connecting and networking with some of the biggest voices for the planet in the world. Like,
yeah.
this is just the amazing work, right? And that must have been, like, at times must have been very scary and nerve-wracking as well for you, right?
I was, you know what scared me, and I'm kind of happy we have a manager now, is traveling alone with her. It was when we went not to Davos, but we went to they have a World Water Week in Sweden in August. And so she got invited there a couple of times to talk. But the first time we went, we met a lady from South America. I'm small. I was taller than her. She was so fascinated. She says, who came here with you? And I looked at her. I said, just me and her. And then she had a translator. She started to cry, and then she says, the lady says she wants to hug you. And I'm like, okay. So I went and hugged her. And then the lady said, where she comes from, she can't travel alone because she's an environmental activist, and her sister was actually murdered, and because they thought it was her because of her
Wow.
activism. So the lady cried, and she held on to me tight, and she said, I was so fortunate to be able to travel alone with my daughter and not have to worry. But then after I was worried, I was like, I never thought about that. I
Mm.
never did. And so after that, everything was heightened for me. I was on high alert, really taking care of her. And plus she went through bullying too. A lot of kids. It was awful, that it was awful for me to see her go through that. And part of me felt helpless, but she got out of it, and she managed to pick herself back up and keep going. And then she gets that too from the leadership. So thinking about those times, that one event, it was a really awesome event, but she really opened my eyes after that. Then I was just like, whoa, I never thought
Yeah.
about that. Because in
Well,
Canada,
and why would you think about
yeah,
that? You've never been in that situation before, and until
never.
it doesn't even cross your mind until somebody says that. But what I love about your story and Autumn's story so much is all about resilience, because again, it's the hard stuff. This hard stuff, doing hard stuff every single day, is what allows us to become these giants, these strong, beings of influence and impact. And I said to Sylvia, our program is called Roots to Wings, but it's the roots and pushing through the dark stuff and all the soil and the stones and the rocks. If you don't have strong roots, you're not going to
Hmm.
be able to grow to the heights. And that's it. You guys had to go through so much and not all at once, but scaffolding stuff that built you for what she is going to become in the world and what she has already become in the world. But all of that stuff had to happen at the earliest stages, and with you and with all the other difficulties, because again, it's stopping this generational trauma, patterns, and elevating all of us to a new and better conscious world. So we need the light workers like yourself and Autumn to be, the guiding compass for all of us. And it's not easy. And so we just honor who you are and the strength and the courage and everything you've had to go through so that she can continue on and you can continue on to be that voice.
Sierra, they're like this, those two, you can't separate them. She has epilepsy, and it was so bad. And so my baby had epilepsy, and we were going through a lot of medical stuff. So I was there with her, and I was there with Autumn, and it was just back and forth. And I moved to Ottawa for services because services are more easier.
Put your hard times up against you, and then you're gonna stop, complaining about some things. And this is why I love these amazing stories like yours, because it really is about, it's the strongest. It's not the people that have the easiest ways. It's the people who have gone through the most that end up becoming the strongest light leaders in the world to inspire everybody else through their difficult and trying times.
I'm thinking, yep, how many people can say when you don't have the support, you have no one, and you have to drive yourself in labor to the hospital. And I parked my car and I walked into the hospital, and I was just like taking my breaks, and
think twice before you complain.
Yeah.